This morning is one of those housekeeping and envisioning the coming year moments for us, in which, while there are candidates who are actually standing for Vestry who are present, as well as, I believe, Judy Ware, who is not able to be with us in person this morning, there are candidates who are standing, but really they're just icons and exemplars of what we're all doing, which is standing in the faith, hope, and love that brings us together in this parish in order to think about how we're going to offer ourselves in the coming year to one another, to God, and to the world. So it is with great thanksgiving that each of you who have said yes to a nominating committee that was chaired by Nick this year. And Nick, our great thanks to you for your care and encouragement of this group of people who are now standing. Every year, it is a really important piece of work for the vestry, who are those directors, that board of directors or governors who are responsible for the strategic direction of the parish, for the support and provision of its ministry through a rector, who this year, at least until I hear otherwise, will be me, paid for by all of you, along with all of the staff, buildings, and grounds that we need in order to do what collectively we feel God is praying and encouraging us to do. That is what we gather to do. Unlike many organizations, we are doing so on a largely voluntary basis, which creates a very different kind of dynamic of an organization for those of you who are used to working in businesses, but not in voluntary or not-for-profit sectors. For those who are used to even working in not-for-profit sectors, there's a even different dynamics in a faith community that are at play. And all of that weaving together happens because of actually weeks and mornings like this, when we think, I want to both take part in the building up of this church by casting a vote for those whom I know, who I will be excited about leading and holding the care of the parish in their hands, including the care of the mission and the staff of this place. For each of you who have been invited to stand and said yes, my personal thanks and all of our thanks to you for that. You are those leaders in the parish whom we know wanted to ask, if you want somebody to give more, take someone who's already very busy, already giving a lot, and ask them to give more. Sometimes the answer is, not this year, please, maybe next year, that's fine. Sometimes it's, let me think about it. And those of you who are here have said yes to us. And for that, we give you both thanks and praise. What we've got now is just a few minutes to share with no great formula. Each of these candidates are different, have said yes for different reasons, come out of different life experiences, which you'll see on their biographies, which are available online. And if you need a printed copy, don't hesitate to ask Karen in the office, and they'll give it to you. But this is an opportunity not so much for, as we sometimes joke, great hustings and slogans and political action committees and all of the opportunities that attend some election processes. This is a discernment and an opportunity just to be present to one another. So with that, we'll ask each candidate to come forward in their own order, and if they need to, I'll just call out a name so that they do come forward, and that opportunity for them just to share something of their own story, how it works with St. James, and what it is that they're looking forward to in their offering of themselves to each of us this morning.
Well, good morning, everyone. My name's Gene Clark, and I guess having be the first one doing this, I'm not exactly sure what I'll say, but I'll kind of go through my bio a little bit. I've lived in Lancaster my whole life. I'll be turning 37 next week, and I attended Conestoga Valley School District and then Franklin Marshall College. Jumped into the company that I'm in right now, which is Clark Associates, a distributor of restaurant equipment and supplies, including these cups. These are our private label cups. See that this morning. So with St. James, I grew up Presbyterian, Lake Hawk Presbyterian down towards Paradise. Then went to First United Methodist Church with my family, just up the block here. And about 5 years ago, I got married to Christy, my wife, and we were looking for a new church situation. So we shopped around a bit. St. James had always been on my mind. I think I shared in the bio and I looked it up, but Wynton Marsalis was here in like 2006 or something like that. Famous trumpet player. I'm a trumpet player, so to me, he's like a god. And so he was coming here and I had the opportunity to sneak in the back door and listen to him do a master class with the McCaskey Jazz Band. And I think that was literally the first time I ever stepped foot in the St. James Sanctuary. So, came and went, and through some other music gigs, I was hired to play here with some brass groups here and there. I can remember playing taps under the big flag in the back. I can remember playing up in the very front on a Christmas Eve midnight mass. I had never been to church that late. Playing a postlude at like 12:30 in the morning was foreign to me, growing up Methodist and Presbyterian. So that was great. And so basically it's always been here. And so when we were church shopping, we definitely wanted to check it out. And I think it was kind of love at first sight. So my wife and I have attended here, joined fairly quickly, I think within a year or so. We have 4 boys. They range from 1-year-old to 12 years old. So that keeps us busy. And we've just found a lot of different ways to get dialed in with the children and youth programming, musically, and just doing whatever we can to help with the church. So with this opportunity, I was curious to see, for me, I'm curious to see how does this place work? And so if given the opportunity through Vestry, I'd be curious to kind of understand more, how do the decisions get made and all of that. So selfishly, that's what I'm interested in. But I also think looking at the outlook of the church, being a relatively young person, I hope to be here a long time, and I want to be a part of a thriving church in the future. And I do have, concern about that, not with St. James, but just the whole church thing. And also going back to trumpet, like the classical music thing, is another challenging situation, which I've done board work with before. So I think that we have to think creatively about the future of all of these things. And it seems like the things I'm passionate about sometimes are the things that are hard or something. I don't know why that is, but so I'm excited about that opportunity and just curious to learn how does it work and where do we go with this?
Good morning. Good morning. I'm Ginger Humphries-Robinson. I've never been on this end of the camera. I'm usually on the other end with those folks over there. So I recognize some of them from Tomlin and Contemplative Prayer. First, I'm honored to be on the slate for Vestry. And I said yes this time. And I want to share with you why I said yes. I came to St. James 42 years ago. I came and I never left. And my bio is in that little pamphlet that you saw it online. So I hope you have a chance to read that. St. James has really been my anchor. It's been my tether, and my faith has been tested like all of yours, and St. James has been here. I served on Vestry many years ago, and it was a challenge. There were really hard decisions. And I found it very different than serving on a nonprofit board or a school board, both of which I did. So why did I say yes? I've been in awe of St. James' history, the excellent clergy and the staff, and yesterday the ordination of Alyssa, and recently Martha Harris, and now the discernment of Joe Pritchard. And that's been a very important part of St. James' history. And meaningful worship, we always have worked really hard to be a welcoming community, meeting community needs. spiritual formation and awesome music. Not as Jean's talent, but I appreciate the awesome music. But COVID really changed things. And in 2020, in February, there was a message from St. James, and David said there was going to be a Compline service at 9 o'clock at night. So I fumble on my iPad and go on, and there's David fumbling and lots of other people fumbling. And here we are 2 years later. And there's a deep spiritual community on Zoom, and it just amazes me that really could happen. So yay for St. James. And now there's a full complement of live stream programs with worship, contemplative prayer, urban well, women's gathering, and very sophisticated technology like this, and people who know how to make it work. And if you haven't seen the children's pageant from 2020, it is a classic. And I just hope they show it every year, because it's just a beautiful, beautiful story. I think Jean's kids were in it, baby Jesus. I just hope they show it every year, because it just is a pure, simple story of the birth of Jesus. So here we are. We did well during COVID, but what are we going to do now? And there really is a lot to do. And it's really scary. Who knows what the world is going to be 2 years from now? Hopefully COVID will be over. But what is worship going to look like? How are we going to meet the needs of our community? What are we going to do with this building, the elephant in the room, and the library next door? So I said yes to be on the slate. And I don't say yes to everything. I've been volunteering with Afghan families through church world service, and I drive them to doctor's appointments and set up apartments, but they asked me if I would teach one of them to drive. I said, no, I will not do that. That's for somebody else a lot younger. So if I am elected, I will show up, I will be prayerful, and I will be a team player. Thank you.
Well, so far, that's been very impressive. I have to start out by saying, don't we love David Peck? No one has ever called me an icon. So my name is Kit Slough. I've been here for a very long time. That makes me tearful. My dear friend Ellen Groff brought me after I was divorced and kind of floundering around for a church, having been a Presbyterian for a long, long time. And I came, and 2 years later, my husband Pete and I were married here in the chapel. And I've been involved in probably about everything since, except the finance committee. I have my limitations. Let's go. I've loved all of it. I've loved Vestry. I've loved communications. I've loved hiring priests and looking for them, searching. I loved being one of the co-chairs of the campaign, which was, as you all know, very successful and just exemplary of what kind of people we are here and what kind of church we have. But I have to tell you very simplistically, the thing that makes me just really, really happy and comfortable is when I sit in that church on the aisle, almost all the time, unfortunately not all the time lately, but when I sit there and I watch people go down for communion right next to me, from the choir to all the way around, honestly and truly, I know that if I said, excuse me, I need some help, I know they would help me. I know they would be there for me. It's that kind of place. And so here I am, still in this place. Thank you so much.
Well, good morning, everyone. Can you hear me?
Yes.
I'm honored to be part of this group and to be nominated. I said yes to the nomination because a person I deeply admire asked me to be nominated for the vestry. That's Kit. You can see why I admire you so much. My wife's an iconographer, so you may know me as the husband of Dory. She wrote the icons that are in the church and the one in the chapel, Blessed Silence. We came to St. James before our confirmation in 2011, really through Ellen and Bob Groff. Ellen was on the board of trustees at F&M, and we were neighbors. And she and Bob practiced the radical hospitality that is a byword of the church. One Good Friday service, which was an interchurch service here at St. James, that was the first time I entered the sanctuary. And it's probably the first year I was here, 2006, 2007, somewhere. And Ellen turned at some point in the service and looked across the entire sanctuary, looked me straight in the eye. And I don't know if you've ever had a moment of kind of revelation, of connection like that, but I did. It was really a wonderful moment, one I'll never forget. Dory and I are still very close to Bob and Linda Groff, and good friends of theirs, and we still think very deeply and lovingly of Ellen. I found that St. James is a place where I could grow spiritually, where I could worship in a way that was meaningful. I was truly impressed and almost surprised at how many things St. James does so well, exceptionally well. Its children's program, its music program, the worship on Sunday, the participation of so many people in its present state, valuing its past, but looking very carefully at the future. The service to others, the acknowledgement of Lancaster with all of its many institutions, its businesses, its people, and those who are in need. So all of those things were very meaningful to me and caused me to want to be confirmed in St. James. I didn't even know that was possible until David explained all of that to me. I've been a higher ed administrator since, well, for over 30 years. My role in coming to Lancaster was to be the vice president for advancement at F&M. I was not shocked at all that the first piece of paper that David showed us the other night on talking about Vestry was a pie chart of the finances and gifts for the church. Institutions need money to run. That's something that I was very familiar with 30 years of raising money for colleges and universities. Very good ones. And of working with trustees. I've been a trustee several institutions, but I've also worked with trustees. In any case, I've learned 3 lessons that I wanted to share from my time in higher education. The first is that leadership does matter. It is very, very important that good decisions be made, and the responsibility of leadership is to be part of making those good decisions. And frankly, of pivoting quickly from bad decisions. Secondly, that the wisdom of the group is always greater than the wisdom of the individual, and that the first job of leadership is listening, and listening deeply. And the third is that institutions, and again, higher ed is my background, but I dare to say that St. James is the same way, depend on everyone to be involved. And the refusal of everyone to allow an institution to diminish because it's so important. That means not protecting it from change, but embracing change and doing so from a position of strength. I'm retired. I retired in June of 2020. I have time and willingness to be involved in leadership. As I said to David, if I'm not elected to Vestry, I do intend, please keep me involved. I would like to contribute no matter in whatever way I can, to the degree I can. So thanks very much, and I'll pass this along to Ken.
Good morning, everyone. My name is Andrew Flinchball. I have been a member here for 6 years, and I'm truly honored to be nominated to be a part, or a potential part of Vestry. St. James, during our search for a church, has meant so much to us and to my parents and to family. Certainly the rich history of St. James, certainly the commitment following many of the points that Dr. Thane raised, the commitment and engagement from the community, certainly ensuring that the rich history of St. James is continued in the community, but certainly continue to provide lots of tools to certainly adapt to the changes of society, and also certainly preparing for the future, I think is critical. Certainly coming from my particular youthful perspective, I also want to be a little selfish and see St. James here for the next 50 years and beyond my lifetime. And I know that certainly individuals in my youth and perspective sometimes are not necessarily finding the right way to get involved in the church. And I hope to certainly be a conduit and to be a voice, certainly for the youth, and to continue to provide opportunities for those to get involved and to find that spiritual growth, as I have found here at St. James. So it's truly an honor to be considered for this. I certainly enjoy every aspect of St. James. We have some of the best clergy and certainly one of the best music programs here in the entire county. We are truly lucky to have that here at St. James. And again, I'm so honored to stand for this, and I appreciate everything and everyone here at St. James who's continued to contribute to my own personal and spiritual growth. So thank you all. I'll hand it off.
Good morning, everyone who braved the cold to be here this morning, and those joining us remotely. As I was repainting my living room yesterday, I was thinking about what more I might share with you all this morning, particularly standing with 7 other very highly accomplished Vestry candidates. And I was painting the room from a bright, bold, almost smack you in the face coral color to a much safer, quieter color with all the romance of dried cornmeal. And thinking about those two things, I recalled a verse that a youth leader had shared with me at Lidditz Mennonite Church back in the early 80s. It's a verse from Timothy, and it basically says, for God has not given us a spirit of timidity, but a spirit of power, a spirit of love, and a spirit of self-discipline. She included that in a card to me, a timid, at that time closeted Mennonite farm boy about to leave Lancaster County to go to college to pursue a career in landscape architecture. And it's stuck with me all this time. Someday I need to find that card. I know I still have it somewhere. But fast forward 25 years, after working with an international design firm, I came back to my hometown and worked with the public sector, the private sector, the nonprofit sector on advancing Lancaster's Renaissance. And during that period, I had the opportunity to work with Father David and other visionary leaders here at St. James to incorporate green infrastructure into the Cloister Courtyard project and the Rectory Courtyard. They had the vision, very progressive, just as today, very progressive, stewardship-oriented staff and Vestry. I merely helped them implement that vision by leading the team of design professionals that incorporated recycled tiles and brick from the previous courtyard space over a subsurface system that captures more than 125,000 gallons of stormwater from the church roof every year and diverts it from going into pipes with Lancaster's sewage that ultimately goes to the Conestoga River and eventually into the Chesapeake Bay watershed. I was so happy with the outcome of that project that I submitted it for local accolades and even a national stormwater award. Believe it or not, there are such things. And St. James was honored with those recognitions of creating the ability to layer spiritual, social, and environmental benefits within a relatively small area. Fast forward another 10 years, my husband Doug Zander and I have had the opportunity to join Father David and others in this room on really wonderful spiritual awakening and pilgrimage to the Holy Lands. We're completely enthralled with Mother Shana. We joined you as confirmed Episcopalians, and then I received a call from Kit asking to stand for Vestry. And so at this point, I'm ready to roll up my sleeves. Being a little less timid today, I boldly ask you for your vote on January 30th, because I'm eager to work with the St. James community, honoring our past, but also planning for a more sustainable future. Thank you.
Good morning. I forgot my name tag. Of course, I put it in an obvious place so I wouldn't forget, and I forgot. My name is Bruce Nichols, and I've been coming to St. James for about 11 or 12 years. I was brought up in a very fundamentalist and then evangelical background. And I can tell you now that my father is rolling over in his grave that I'm an Episcopal church, that there's a woman priest here. But I was first drawn to the Episcopal Church, ironically, at a small Christian liberal arts college, the King's College in Briarcliff Manor, New York, where I got my undergrad degree. And I was drawn because I didn't go to church there, surprisingly. But when I did go to church, I rolled out of my dorm room and walked down to a little Episcopal church right down the street. And I loved the worship there. I found, even though, despite my evangelical fundamentalist background, I was drawn to the more contemplative aspect of it. So that was my first introduction to the Episcopal Church. And then in between my undergrad and grad degree, I had a year off and I worked with mentally challenged adults in the Philadelphia area and took them to an Episcopal church because that's where they had been going. And that was my second connection. And then after many years of going to a local evangelical free church here in Lidditz, I moved over here and found this place to be really where I belong. I love their focus on both the local and outreach, and I like the fact that they both preserve the tradition and history while looking forward. And I love taking the Eucharist every Sunday, something that doesn't happen in an evangelical church. They take it once a month. So I loved all those things. And now at my point in my career is done in the business world. I was a vice president of marketing for an AE firm for 31 plus years. And I have time on my hands. And I feel in some ways as a retiree that I'm meandering. And I see this as an opportunity to apply the abilities I have, which I still think I have, even though I forgot my name tag. And I'd love to have a chance to serve here on Vestry. And if that doesn't work out, I'm also, Father David, willing to help in other ways. In fact, the library project sounds very interesting. And I was having a beer and a hamburger with a friend of mine the other night. And I told him about this opportunity. I mentioned the library, and his first comment was, what the heck are they going to do with that library? So I'd love to be involved with that as well. So if you can, I'd love to have your vote, but if not, I'll still be around and hope to serve where I can. Thank you very much.
Bruce, thank you for that, and each of you for both preparing your hearts and preparing us for the wonderful opportunity to get to know you better. That's really community and sharing our common life and our common gifts, as Father Glenn is preaching on this morning, is absolutely part of what we see. And I hope it's renewing and inspiring for you that when we do things locally, when people are authentic, vulnerable, open, hopeful, and inspiring, that's what we're able to do. This is our base community, both in our family lives and in our church lives, that should be that basis on which we go out and do everything that we do in the rest of our lives with our living and our loving. And so thank you for this incredible ability to turn what is both a bureaucratic and governance process into something that is about calling forth gifts. Yes, John. I'm just looking to see if she is, and I don't think so. But I'll footnote there and say, Judy Ware is one of the candidates who is standing. She's in Florida at the moment and unable to be with us this week, but she is also on Vestry, an opportunity on among the candidates standing. She comes from a very long background, many decades here in Lancaster and in St. James, where her own gifts of both art, teaching, and tending to so many of the social and community building needs of Lancaster across the arts, the faith communities, as well as social services, has been an exemplary and inspiring one, which is, of course, how and why she was also invited to stand, and in her own moment of being able to say yes in this coming year. As we continue to develop our own governance structures, they are going to need to adapt as we go forward as well. St. James is in a sector of ministry that is changing radically. We're part of a diocese that is facing the struggles that you would expect of a mainline denominational church in a large, wide, mostly rural and depopulating region of central Pennsylvania, as well as pockets of urban and southern tier, as it's called, the south central Pennsylvania, that is so very different from north central Pennsylvania, from Altoona, and from the New York border, and where we are also as a diocese running. So the governance issues that overlap with the National Episcopal Church, our diocese, our local parish, and how it relates ecumenically to the other churches and faith communities in our county and city, as well as the other Episcopal parishes, of whom there are 9 others in Lancaster County, are all part of the mix that we have. In the time that we've got left, another 5 or 10 minutes, if there are questions or comments that you have for me or for Nick or for those currently on Vestry, it would be a delight to have them. This is the occasion in which we pay attention to our governance, and so there are no dumb questions. What you don't know about what makes St. James work, other people in the room also don't know and would be blessed to hear something of. To those candidates who are standing and will not be elected this time, I hope you know that you are invited to stand again, that is part of the healthy process of both getting to be known and being known, the gifts that we have to share. And I hope in that diversity of the group that you see, those of you who have not yet stood for Vestry will now know there's no reason that you don't stand for Vestry. There is every reason to stand for Vestry, because it's out of those gifts that we stir up and create the horizon that God is calling us to in the coming year. Terrific point. So for those of you who didn't hear, Patty was reflecting first on how it is that we can report back better on the proceedings of Vestry, including whether or not Vestry meetings are open to all comers, to which the answer is yes, Vestry meetings are open to all comers. There may, on extremely rare occasions, be reserved business, but that has not been a normal pattern or practice for Vestry in my 14 years here. So first, they are on, Vestry meetings tend to be on the fourth Tuesday of every month, and usually at 6:30 beginning. We have moved ourselves to a hybrid format, online and in person, which actually, like online voting, gives the opportunity for more people to listen in. We always have minutes that are notes of the meeting that are taken, and those certainly can be available and sort of should be available somewhere on our website, and that would be an easy way to just upload those. And I know we've also talked about reporting financially on the progress of the year. And we've gone back and forth on how to do that more, how to do that better, how to do that not so much that there's a sort of either a drip of anxiety, in which I always say we're a retail business that does a lot of its work at Christmas. And if you are wanting to be anxious about the finances of St. James for 11 months, have us report every month on how we're doing. And it does not look good for a very long time, including about the vestry meeting that we have in December. And we're looking at our watches and thinking, maybe not. And in January, where we'll be meeting in a week or so's time, the end of the year looks very different at the end of January than it does at the beginning of December or the end of February. That's one of the dynamics of change that we have, which is why the stewardship and giving season in the fall is so crucial to actually liberating the leadership to think about the coming year, and sharing that in a way more dynamically. Patty, is a really good invitation to us, and thanks very much for that reflection. We can all make a note of that as we go forward. The other area which I really don't know how we're going to report back on is the discernment process of the library, which is sort of one of those big multi-year things, which so many of our decisions are. The vestry being, the rectory being a good example of, in the last 5 years that we were thinking about the rectory, there were so many different elements to what we were thinking about with the rectory that if we reported on every one of those, you would have had such a ricochet sense of what on earth are those people thinking? Is there not a bad idea that they'll take seriously? And so I also have a slight caveat about too much reporting on too much particularity at any particular time creates a sort of an over information flow that allows us to listen deeply, as somebody said, consider things, investigate them, which doesn't necessarily mean that we're taking them very seriously, or that they're ultimately something that hasn't given way to a better idea that's come forward from it. And so that, but there has to be an Anglican middle ground between trust us, we'll just continue to think in the dark and tell you when we want to turn on the lights, or anxiously reporting from week to week all of the zany things that are coming in and out of our mind. What is also interesting about vestry, and I was sharing this with those standing, it is very often that an idea is begun 5 years ago, and the people who happen to be elected are making a decision in February and making it largely on the basis of a collaborative trust of what's gone before. And one of the great frustrations of leadership for me is I would love vestry terms to be 5 years, but people wouldn't stand for 5 years. The reason I want people to be here for 5 years is because every year, Nick, is it a third of the vestry terms over? So to lose a third of the continuity of leadership of people who've been thinking for 2 or 3 years before, and then magically they disappear, and magically 4 new people appear who have to be part of decisions that may be ready to be made right then, is one of the things that makes me anxious as a leader within the parish. But those are 2 elements of what we're juggling as a vestry.
I meant to ask this the other night. Do you operate by consensus on vestry? Do you come to a decision? Does it have to be a consensus?
It's a really good question, Bruce, and I would say mostly yes, because mostly our decisions aren't clear cut. They're, shall we consider buying a different, the renovation of the rectory as it is going to cost so much money. Should we consider buying a different home for the rector moving forward? And that's not a vote of shall we do that. Everyone who's opposed to exploring that idea say no, or everyone who wants to say yes, say yes. It's you get a great sense of the meeting over the last year and our struggle with it. But that's most, I would say, most of how our decisions are made. It's like, yeah, I think it's time for us to consider a very different model of housing a rector in the next 25 or 125 years. When it came finally to making a decision on what the dollar amount and the contract, general contractor was going to be, that was a vote and a recorded vote of yes, this was the day on which the vote was taken by these people for this decision. So it's a combination, but most of our voting, most of our decision making is slow motion, discernment, incremental, and consensual. And again, Nick and all of those others on Vestry join in and chime in with your perspective on that as well. We're at time, I think, and so my great thanks to each of you for your time and attention this morning. Our joy in getting to know each of you so much better because you said yes to Nick and to Kit and to those who were seeking to invite your gifts into deeper, generous giving. And for that, you have all of our great thanks and praise. See you in church, online, or next week when you're back.